Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Playbook. This is episode number 64. And on this week's episode, we have Brett Watkins. Thank you for joining us, Brett.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So how you been?
I'm good. Actually, things have gone well. This is my best year so far.
Awesome, man. Awesome. That's great to hear. So one of the main questions we always like to ask everybody, Brett, is what made you decide to become a realtor? Like, what were some of the things you were kind of contemplating or thinking about before you took that journey and started to get licensed, becoming a real estate agent?
Yeah, that's real simple for me. I had a job where I was making, adequate money.
Mm-hmm.
Not good money, but adequate. And I had enough to buy a house. My credit score was just good enough. My money in the bank was just enough. I was one of those borderline clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I went searching for a real estate agent, and nobody wanted to help me. And I was not happy about that.
Yeah, I never knew that.
I was really not happy about that. This was 2012, 11, 12, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So the market was at a low point, and I just couldn't find anybody to help me. I ended up finding my own house, and I got an agent that wrote up the offer. But I was just completely aggravated with the whole situation, and it occurred to me I could do this so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward a couple of years, and I took the test.
There you go. So, how did you go about finding your agent?
Trial and error, just kind of hit and miss. I'd talk to somebody, they'd never call me back.
Wow.
I went out to actual walked-in doors to agencies and
Nothing.
got nothing. I ended up with an agent that was running back and forth between Orlando and Tampa, so she had very minimal time. And she did a lot of things that I didn't know you're really not supposed to do. At the time, I didn't know. She's like giving me codes. Yeah, go
look at the property.
Go look at this place. Here's the code to the place. And so I'm tromping around Tampa, walking into lucky I didn't get shot. But
In and out of properties.
So, but when I found the house, she did write the offer for me, and it did close. But that always just left a bad taste in my mouth, and I knew that I could. It was something that I could do, and I always wanted to do.
So the driving factor, so the fact you were making it, but how I'm kind of visualizing this is kind of prior to getting into real estate with your previous occupation, it's kind of month to month, right? You're making ends meet, you're paying the monthly bills, but your more driving force wasn't necessarily the freedom or the income. That might have been secondary or maybe even third. Your driving force was, hey, you felt you could drastically improve the level of service in the real estate industry and saw a huge void that you could kind of seize the opportunity.
Well, let's be truthful. No, the money too.
Yeah.
Because I knew real estate had a few things that were attractive to me. Freedom in making your own sort of schedule, the unlimited income potential, and I just from all the agents that I had dealt with and talked to, I knew I could do it at least as good, if not better.
Right.
But the money, the freedom, and truthfully, I mean, this goes way back to when I was in my 20s. I wanted to be like a real estate investor. I read like the Carlton Sheets thing and all the no money down books and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of been there.
A passion. All right. So then your previous occupation then, Brett, what exactly were you doing prior to becoming a realtor?
Actually worked out well. I ran logistics for the Salvation Army. I had, several counties, Hillsborough, Polk, Pasco County, and I was in charge of all the truck drivers and the phone room and the mechanics. So I had about 35 employees underneath me. But what it did for me is because I worked my way up, I was a dispatcher first. I learned all of the area. Mm-hmm. So I knew all the subdivisions. I knew the areas for, what they were. And I had a real good layout of the land prior to getting into real estate.
Okay.
So it was helpful.
Yeah, it definitely gave you kind of a leg up into
I
when
knew
you
where
started
I
your
was
career.
going.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of knew the homes when they tell you about amenities or lifestyle, just from you kind of dispatching and understanding that you probably had kind of leg up on the competition. The competition, I mean, other newly licensed agents who might not be as well acclimated with the
It
area.
was helpful. I knew where I was going. I knew what kind of neighborhood before I, got there.
And it probably also helped you, I got to think, by you kind of handling the logistics when you're showing clients, right, on how you kind of organize your trips and making your stops, making sure you're going in a pattern or whatever you want to call it. That makes sense, from a start point to a finish point.
Super helpful.
Yeah,
Super
kind of having
helpful.
that background.
Because I had to plan the routes for all the drivers and be as efficient as possible. And it was helpful. My first couple of years, all of my clients that I sold homes to, I delivered pies to them over Thanksgiving. And I mapped it out the same. So I'm like, I got 30
Logistics.
pies to deliver. I'm running around town delivering pies.
That's awesome,
It was
man.
cool.
So, what was one of the main things from your previous occupation, kind of running logistics there for Salvation Army, and handling those routes that you think help you, besides obviously the planning of routes, help you get a leg up in real estate and have greater success than most agents have?
I had to learn to work with a lot of different people.
Okay, just the personalities.
Just a lot of different personalities, and I had to deal with not only my truck drivers and my employees, but I had to deal with the store employees, the Salvation Army upper echelon, the majors and the captains, and it's very much run like an army. And I had to deal with all of that and sit in on their meetings. So I dealt with a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities, and I learned to shut up. I learned to watch what I said and be careful, as to how I handled myself. Where in previous years, much younger, maybe not so good.
Disciplined.
Thank you. That's the word, disciplined.
So it really helped you with kind of just the management, not only the management, but like you said, handling everything, communicating with all the different parties involved, really helped you with your communication skills to kind of transition into real estate and understand almost that human psyche component while you're kind of learning the craft and the skill set of real estate and contracts and all that goes into that. You already kind of knew dealing with the general public, which probably gave you a leg up for most, because a lot of people come into this and if they're sitting, behind a queue punching numbers or doing something where they're not really socializing, they tend, from what I see, most struggle because they don't have those personal skills.
It helped me as far as that goes, and prior to this, I did phone sales. I did a lot of telemarketing. I sold everything at one point. I sold insurance when I was a lot younger. So I kind of already had that skill, and the telemarketing, as much as people hate telemarketers, that's something that can be learned.
Yeah.
And my phone skills have been a huge help.
Absolutely.
Huge help.
When it comes to the prospecting.
Yeah. So, the whole ball of wax sort of led me up to this point. In hindsight, all the things that I did before, it seems like a weird mix match of mosh of stuff, but it led me to here. And it's worked out well.
Yeah, and you're able to kind of almost pluck a different skill that was going to be vital for your success becoming a real estate agent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been cool.
That's awesome, man. So I always like to ask the question too. What was something when you got licensed? Obviously, you probably have a vision of what it's going to be like, and everybody kind of has an idea of what that's going to look like. I always like to ask, what's one thing you might have taken for granted, or something you didn't expect once you became a licensed agent?
I expected actually a lot more help. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I had been in commission sales jobs before, so I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be like it is on TV. But I figured, well, you know what? I'll find somebody somewhere that'll mentor me, help me. And that was much harder than I thought. It was difficult for me to find somebody that would help me in the beginning. But I latched on to some people. whether they liked it or not, and got me through, the first year and a half, whatever.
Yeah, because I do see that, coming in from most brokerages, entry level, it's like they'll spend a lot of time recruiting, get you in the door, but then it's almost like a sink or swim mentality.
And that's exactly the position I was in. I'm like, great, so I got my license, I'm ready to go, and now what do? I don't have any clients. Where do I get clients? How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I really was clueless, and it worked out, mainly because I didn't quit.
So you just kind of kept going and persevering, moving forward. Yeah, and you're not a shy person, right? So if you need something, you're going to find the resource to get you what you need.
Yes, I opened my mouth.
Which, most of the times is a good thing, right? Because you don't want to kind of be shy and timid, because when people aren't getting the help that they need, then unfortunately they tend to leave the business, or if maybe they asked the right questions or got connected to the right person, they could have kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I completely get that. So then, Brett, like right now, obviously the market's shifting a little bit. We're not doing as many transactions as we once were. Obviously, you kind of be in the business for a decent amount of time now. I'm sure you're wanting to ensure similar level of success that you had in the past and continue to grow on that. So what would be the one thing that you're either doubling down on or you're going all in on to ensure you have that level of success?
Yeah, it's going to be back to the basic, things that you have to do every day to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 years, it was easy to hit home runs because people were just clamoring at the door, help me buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that way anymore. Now it's back to following up with all of your past clients, calling all the new clients, sending them emails, texts, staying in touch until they're ready.
Right.
And as long as you're the one that's in touch with them, when they're finally ready, whether it be a week, a month, a year, hey, you know what? Where's that guy that keeps calling me? It's pestering the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get a hold of him, and it all comes back. It all funnels back through. So it takes patience, perseverance, a lot of qualities that can be acquired, and I know that I was not a patient person previously.
Yeah.
But when you see it pay off, then the little light bulb goes on. Okay, so if I keep doing this, eventually payday's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it's, not only prospecting for new clientele, people to add to your database, but in addition to that, curating everybody that's in there and making sure that you're constantly touching them, reaching out, so that you are top of mind when it is for the time for them to transact, whether it's buy or sell.
Absolutely. Even during this time of the year, I'm getting a hold of all my old clients. I sent them all out, gift cards, and I just do all kinds of little things to let them know that, hey, it's still here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had one call me up. He's like, hey, I'm ready to sell this place. I'm ready to buy somewhere else. Great.
Yeah.
And that's all just because I sent out a little thing to them.
Yeah, and the more people that you add to your database, the more people that you constantly curate is going to eventually lead to more sales.
Yeah,
so it's kind of the formula.
I mean, that's nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing earth-shattering. But it may be new to some of the new agents that came in the last couple of years. They're like, uh-oh,
Or watch some of these real estate reality shows, right?
Yeah, right.
You just have $1 million buyers show up ready to transact that day.
And it goes boom, boom, boom. Hey, you want to buy it? Yeah, I want to buy it. Okay. Boom, we're done.
The offer.
Million and a half.
So I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on it because you are somebody who, I think when it comes to prospecting, you're kind of head of the class at that. What are some things for people who might be prospecting but not as efficient or disciplined as you, or maybe somebody like you said that is not even aware, right, that, hey, this level of prospecting is needed. They came into this hot market. Things were a lot easier. Now you're kind of getting back to your fundamentals. How do you create your schedule? How do you stay disciplined? What does that look like for somebody who wants to kind of start that and start building their business as well as adding prospects?
When I started, I was at ground zero. I had no clients. I had to find clients. And I spent my evenings probably 4 or 5 days a week, which is how I met Rose, actually. 4 or 5 days a week at the office from roughly 4 o'clock in the evening till 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
I knew from past telemarketing jobs, those are the money hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's when people are getting home. That's when, you're going to get your people that are aggravated. They don't want to talk to you, but people are home during those hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent, I don't know, years, 2 or 3 years of doing that religiously, even when I didn't want to spend at least 2 to 4 hours per day on the phone, just banging away.
Now, when you're making those calls that night, that time, so what I'm hearing right now, step one, create a schedule, right? So your schedule, part of that 4 to 8 was phones. You're calling out in not really database, but anybody you're adding to it and keeping in contact. Was it more for, and initially, obviously, I know it was finding prospects to put in your database, but was it dedicated just for finding new business, or were you also following up and nurture your clientele during that 4 to 8 window?
That was more for new business.
Okay.
I try, it all sort of intermixes, but I tried to keep that more for new business. And then my follow-ups I would do in the morning. I'd spend an hour or so. Okay, this one needs an email touch. This one needs a quick text. This one needs, this one needs a phone call. And I'd end up intermixing some of it, but I tried to keep the phone calls for the evening because I knew I'd get a hold of people.
Mm-hmm.
Emails and texts and things like that I'd do in the morning. Because, a lot of times you're just not going to get a hold of anybody.
Right.
They got jobs.
Leave a voicemail.
So, right.
Something of that nature. And then, so it sounds like obviously step one, get a calendar, block your times, let them know what it's dedicated for. You were kind of separating it where it's like, all right, prospect new clients in the evening, doing my follow-up, my touches with my consumer database during the morning, and then, fielding callbacks, returning texts or emails throughout the day, which some of that might bleed over into the prospecting time. When you were kind of disciplined with these habits, what were some things, like out the gate, did you start to work on your scripting? Did you start to learn new dialogue, or was it more that you would kind of just go in and make these calls with? Or was yours more kind of abstract trial and error? Hey, I'm just dialing the phone. Let me just see what works and continue to expand on that.
I tried a little everything. I tried some scripts. I downloaded some Tom Ferry stuff and some other gurus and some little scripts that just to give me a basis of where to start. And that was somewhat helpful. But mainly, I just call them up and be myself. I think where a lot of people kind of go haywire with phone calls and with just dealing with people in general is they have a they don't mean to, but they have a confrontational sort of thing in them where I'm talking to the enemy, or I'm talking to somebody that's. I'm trying to get something out of somebody.
They got their guard up.
Yeah, and people can smell that. Dogs can smell that. People can tell too. And they're like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" You got to quit acting like you're talking to the enemy. Mm-hmm. And so when I call people, I'm like, "Hey, man, Joe, what's going on? Hey, what's happening?" And they're like, "Hey, what's happening?" They're surprised when they hear that. And if you quit treating people like they're the enemy. This is your buddy. This is your friend. This is somebody that's going to make you some money. Mm-hmm. That was a big change in mindset that I had a long time ago when I was telemarketing.
Yeah, and I always I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit too. I always talk about you need to be scripted. You need to know what to say, right? So that way, you need to be trained. You need to be educated. So when people do have these questions, you're having a conversation that can kind of give them the answers and handle yourself in a professional manner. But I always said, people will kind of learn scripts verbatim and never veer off it, regardless of where the conversation takes you. And I would say, hey, you got to know the dialogue. You got to know just how to talk to people. And I think a lot of times agents, and that's why I'm glad you kind of brought this up, are so gung-ho on getting through the script. They're not even really, I find a lot of times when they start prospecting, most agents aren't really as happy as, hey, if I book the appointment as they are today, I follow the script to a T. And I think they overthink it a lot. It's just you need to have conversation with people and kind of build that rapport. So into what you're saying, you can bring down that guard and then, figure out how you can help them, because that's what sales is, right? A solution to the problem.
Absolutely. And you know what? I brought it up before. I learned to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
If I get them talking, they'll be like, "Oh, my grandkid," they'll say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my dog's in the background, or my grandkids are in the background." Or they go, "Oh, I got a dog too. Oh, what's going on?" And they'll bop, bop, bop. 20 minutes later, I haven't talked about real estate at all.
Mm-hmm.
I know all about their grandkids and their kids, and I'm like, "So, you know what? You want to set that appointment? I'll come over tomorrow." "Oh, yeah, sure. They're terrific. You're awesome."
Yeah.
Haven't said a word about real estate.
It's that easy. Yeah. It tends to come up, and that's what, and a lot of times you'll just come up in passing, where when I'm sure you're showing clients homes, yeah, you're focusing on the house and you'll answer some questions, but a lot of time you're probably conversing to things that really has nothing to do with real estate while you're touring the propities.
A lot of times.
Yeah.
A lot of times. Don't be afraid to make some friends.
Yeah. It might be harder for some, but yeah, it always came natural to me, and I think I was just always focused on the person and having that conversation, building the rapport over just kind of getting through certain words or questions and making sure I, cross all the T's, dotted all the I's type of thing.
Yeah. That can all be learned.
Yeah.
Because I know you won't believe this, but I was actually a shy person.
Not you, Brett.
I mean, I'm going back some years, but I was actually, I didn't really want to talk to you. I was pretty
standoffish,
stand in the background kind of guy, and obviously not so much anymore. But
no, and I think, from what I've seen personally and experiences, the telemarketing, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or if it just kind of rewires you, where people who do get in the sales and you kind of get over that fear of cold calling and you kind of understand, hey, you might get cursed out sometimes, you're going to develop some thick skin. It kind of correlates to when you're not as shy or timid or whatever you want to call it, when you're then face to face. For whatever reason, it does transition over where I think it helps you build the confidence. You don't really have the fear of rejection anymore, which is
right. No, that's
yeah.
a big part. That's a big part because I had to get over that. You know what? This was another big hurdle for me in my career, not just in real estate, but just in life. Period. Was the idea that, hey, Brett Watkins isn't everybody's cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
That was really hurtful to me in the beginning. I was like, "What do you mean you don't like me? How can that be?" Yeah. I was very hurt, and I had to get over it. I was like, "All right, you know what? Hey, it's cool. You don't like me? All right, good deal. Well, love you. We'll move on." And you just got to be okay with yourself, and whatever people think, you got to be okay with that too.
Yeah, it's a numbers game, And I heard a long time ago from one of my mentors, somebody else's opinion and view is none of your business. And how I kind of internalize that is, hey, just keep going. They're going to think what they want. Don't let it get in your head and kind of slow down your momentum. Just kind of keep going. And you are going to find people who, not necessarily they have to be like-minded, but do want to work with you. But you're going to have to get through a lot of people who don't to find the ones who do. It's a numbers game.
No, absolutely. Because, and you'll find that, or at least I've found that most of my clients, they just seem to have a similar mindset. They have a similar. We get along.
Absolutely. And then I know obviously one of the things most agents kind of struggle with. I call it a work-life balance, right? You're kind of a 1099 contractor. You're making your own schedule. You have to be disciplined in the activities that you're doing to ensure the success you want. What are some things or techniques that you've put in place, Brett, to kind of create that balance where not only can you have the time to hit all your financial and business goals, but also fit in all your personal goals, time with your wife, things of that nature, and kind of have that balance and stick to that schedule?
Yeah, that's still difficult.
Mm-hmm. It never gets easy.
That's still a challenge. I think, geez, if I was single, I'd have a zillion dollars. But I'm not, and I don't want to be, and I love my wife, so I have to figure that out.
Right.
And truthfully, the only way it works is it's all on a calendar. I have it all on a Google Calendar, and I incorporate everything.
Personal,
going to the doctors, meeting my wife, going here. I have to be there. Whatever it is, it's plugged into the calendar, and that seems. But it's easy to plug things into your calendar, but you have to do what the calendar says. That's the other half of that.
Yeah.
I was real good in the beginning at plugging all kind of stuff into my calendar. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be here, and that day would oh well I gotta and I wouldn't follow it, and I couldn't figure out why things weren't working out for me.
Right.
And basically somebody just said, "Well, dumbbell, are you following what you've got in your calendar?" I'm like, not really. You got to do what you put into it, and
Yeah, show up for the appointments.
all of the, but that's really saved my life. I have friends that call me. They're like, "Hey, you want to do lunch or something?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I'll be like, if we don't put it in, we got to make the date right now, even if it's for 2 weeks from now, and I got to put it in the calendar. If we do that, it'll happen. If we don't, it's never going to happen. Because if it's not in there, it doesn't exist."
100%. And right now, Brett, obviously you being a very successful agent, continuing to grow in your career path in real estate. For any agent out there who's newly licensed, maybe thinking about getting licensed, or maybe an agent who had a level of success, market shifting a bit, they're not having as much success as they wanted to. Obviously, you covered prospecting, but what's maybe one tip or advice that you could give, one nugget of information to kind of turn it around, or maybe give them their jump start that you would start doing if you were a new agent in today's market? Obviously, we have the prospecting.
One thing that I was going to do if I was a new agent.
Yeah, just like a tip or something you kind of share with them. Obviously, making the calls, building that database. Anything else that you, words of wisdom for them to kind of jumpstart their career?
Well, before I got into this, I was prepared. I was prepared to not have instant success. I talked to my wife, and we sat down, and I was like, "Look, we got X amount of dollars in the savings account. We know what you bring in, and I need to hit at least this, which I think I can do." I said, "But all we're going to do this year is probably pay the bills." So I was prepared for a year or two of struggle. Now, not everybody can be prepared like that, but that would be my suggestion before you run out and quit your other job.
Just come up with a game plan.
Be prepared, because it's rare. I don't care what kind of commission job you're doing. It's rare to be a rock star out of the gate and maintain rock star status for your entire career.
100%.
So I was prepared, and I knew that I would be successful if I didn't quit. And where does that sort of determination and perseverance come from? I don't know. I just knew that from prior experience and being around enough salespeople that most folks quit within a year or two, and because they're not hitting. And you know what? If I would have not known that, I was about 2 years in, and I was still struggling. I was paying the bills, but I was struggling. And, but I just kept at it. Failure was not an option.
So yeah, and my takeaway on this is, one, you had a plan, right? Not necessarily a business plan. You weren't, as you got licensed, you kind of started to develop that, but you had a plan on, hey, this is how much we got. This is X how long we can go without money. This is how long it might be thin, and you were mentally prepared for that. Where some are like, hey, I'll see a check in 30 days, and they're not prepared for, oh shit, what happens if I don't have a savings, or I don't have money to the side, bills are coming due, and I haven't had a closing yet. In addition to that, I always say this, it's a lot of times if somebody wants to get into sales, if you have a plan B, it's almost like a safety net. What I mean by plan B, if this doesn't work, I'll go back and do this. Well, 99% of the time, it doesn't work out, and they go back and do that. Yeah. But for you, you had the mindset of, this is going to work. I'm not sure when, but I'm not quitting, and I'm going to keep going until it does.
My wife actually, because I was trying to do that. I was trying to live in both worlds. And I told her, I said, look, there's no part-time real estate agent is stupid. I said, this isn't going to work. And she's like, well, just quit your job. And I'm like, well, that sounds wonderful. Have you ever, lived on, potted meat and ramen noodles? And yeah, she's like, well, no. I'm like, well, you better prepare yourself. But anyway, I forgot where I was going with that. But anyway, don't quit was my main goal. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. My first 2 years, so I quit my job at the Salvation Army. Now I'm a full-time realtor. And time goes on, I'm getting a deal here, a deal there, we're staying afloat. And but I needed some more money. Just no question about it. So I took part-time jobs. I delivered papers in the middle of the night, for my first year, almost my first year. I was delivering the St. Pete Times out of my car, throwing papers at 5 o'clock in the morning. I did that for extra money. I took a part-time job dispatching for Quest on the weekends in the middle of the night. So I did what I had to do
to get where you needed to go
to make this happen. Unfortunately, a lot of folks, I shouldn't say they don't have that mentality, but they need to keep that. If you're going to make this work, you got to be willing to do whatever it takes.
Realistic, yeah.
You got to,
you're onto something.
If you got to deliver pizzas or whatever, part time to make this work and till you learn the business, do it.
Yeah, and I think you're onto something. I don't think a lot of people are humbled enough to do what it takes, and that's one of the biggest things. Their ego gets in the way. They may not even be aware of it, but it's like, hey, I didn't get into real estate to deliver pizzas. And if that's the mindset, if that's what if delivering pizzas is what gets you to stay in real estate to accomplish your goal, then that's what it takes. And a lot of people, I've noticed, don't humble or let their ego get out of the way. Be like, all right, this is what I thought it was going to be. Well, I have my plan B. I'll just go back to that because that's better than delivering pizzas.
Right. I'm not making $1 zillion. God forbid I deliver a pizza to some friends of mine.
Right.
And I could care less. I ran into some folks on my paper route. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm doing what I have to do. And you know what? They were all like, good for you.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. Well, Brett, it's been a pleasure having you back again as a guest on this show. For anybody out in the real estate market who is looking to buy or sell real estate, what's the best number and best email address they can reach you on?
My phone number, 813-735-3466. I pretty much answer that from 8 in the morning till 10 at night. If I don't, leave me a message. And Brett at 54realty.com. Brett at 54realty.com. Anytime.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brett. We'll go ahead and get that posted to all the social sites for this podcast. And thank you all for tuning in to another weekly episode of the Real Estate Playbook.